Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Somebody call the roll, Patrick or Chris?
Commissioner Alexander,
Here.
Commissioner Campbell,
Here.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Here.
Commissioner Ellis,
Here.
Commissioner Hyder, Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Pinnell.
Here.
Thank you. The first item of business is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes that need to be made to the agenda?
Staff would actually like to request that the agenda be changed. We would like to pull the third item, ordinance 22-004, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of amendments to Chapter 405 zoning regulations. We would ask that that be pulled so that we could evaluate and introduce that at a later date. So that requires
Vote.
a vote for someone to make a
Yep.
change.
Okay, do I hear a motion on that?
Motion to remove ordinance 22004 from the agenda.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Pinnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Alexander,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item of business is the approval of the minutes from the September 12th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Any changes that need to be made in these? If not, somebody make a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the September 12th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, meeting minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Pinnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Alexander.
Aye.
Looks like we have one item that will go into, we have one rezone, which is a hearing. So I'm going to ask Patrick, since he has the microphone, to read the meeting procedures.
The Planning and Zoning Commission holds public hearings as required by law and provides recommendations to City Council on matters relating to land use planning, zoning, and the subdivision of land. Any person who has interest in the subject matter of a hearing will have the opportunity to provide testimony and present evidence to the Commission during the public hearing. Speakers are required to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful manner. Disruptive behavior, including applause, yelling, speaking out of turn, or other inappropriate behaviors will not be tolerated. Additionally, the following applies to any person addressing the Commission. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless authorized additional time by the chairperson. Speakers must speak at the podium unless previous arrangements have been made by the chairperson. Speakers must legibly print their name and address on the sign-in sheet at the podium prior to speaking. Speakers must begin by stating their name and address. Speakers should speak clearly and into the microphone. The chairperson will announce the subject of the hearing, followed by a report from staff. The chairperson will then open the public hearing to the applicant, followed by those in favor of the application and those opposed to the application. The chairperson will close the public hearing during this time. The commission will discuss among themselves. The public may not address the commission after the close of the public hearing unless requested by the chairperson. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall base their recommendation and/or decision on information and evidence presented during the public hearing. This decision, if required by the application, will be forwarded in writing to City Council for further consideration.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm calling as our first public hearing, rezone 22-008, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 10.44 acres located at 688 South Kansas Avenue from agricultural AG and medium density single family residential R1M to multifamily R3. The way this will work, again, as Patrick read, First hear from the city and get the report from the city. Then we'll go to the applicant, and then to any person who is in support of the application, and then move to anyone who's not in support of the application. There's a number of people here, and we're always happy to have and not be lonely on our meetings. So, anybody that wants to speak will do it, and we'll do it in an orderly fashion. So let's start with Chris and the report of the city.
Built Right Homes has applied to change the zoning classification of approximately 10.44 acres of property located at 688 South Kansas Avenue from agricultural, AG, and medium-density single-family, R1M, to multifamily residential, R3. The property subject to this rezoning application consists of approximately 10.44 acres and is located at 688 South Kansas. The property is occupied by a house that has recently burned down. The requested zoning district is multifamily R3. Land uses permitted in the multifamily residential zoning district include multifamily dwellings, limited single and two-family residential, and residential care assisted living facilities. The following paragraphs contain brief analysis of present site conditions and the proposal's relationship to the adopted plans of the city. Evaluation for the purpose of staff recommendation is conducted with the assumption of the most intense build-out for property to provide for the most responsible analysis. The city's comprehensive plan generally encourages the expansion of residential and commercial development through proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are described generally throughout the plan with regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure capable of supporting various intensities and densities of uses. The first goal that is in support of this rezone is to support market conditions to develop a greater variety of residential and commercial options. The objective, support a variety of housing developments and styles to ensure a range of options are available. The second goal, to support new development that is well connected to the existing community. The objective, encourage development that improves and expands upon existing infrastructure, and to promote development aligning with the current adopted plans of the city. The third goal, to recognize potential infill sites as opportunities for development while mitigating impacts to adjacent established properties. The objective, to support the development of vacant parcels as opportunities for densification that is harmonious with surrounding development. The rezoning of this parcel is consistent with the city's adopted plans. The general trend in the vicinity of the subject property is single-family residential. The applicant is seeking to rezone to the multifamily residential R3 zoning district. Land use is permitted in the multifamily district are again multifamily dwellings, single and two-family residential, and residential care assisted living facilities. A rezone of the parcel from agricultural and medium density family to multifamily residential is not considered to be consistent with the surrounding single family residential. More specifically, the subject property is surrounded by, to the north, medium density single family, to the east, medium density single family, to the south, agricultural, to the west, agricultural. The land use of the surrounding properties is single family residential. Multifamily residential R3 is the residential zoning district of greatest intensity present in the city municipal code. The R3 district provides for the highest density ratio of dwellings to area with the allowance of 17.42 dwellings per acre. The density ratios for agricultural and medium density single family residential are 0.33 dwellings per acre and 0.4884 dwellings per acre respectively. Regarding the capacity of the city to serve the potential development and land use, the development of the property will require connecting to existing municipal water and sewer mains located on site. 2 6-inch water mains are accessible to the subject property, one at the south termination of South Angel Avenue and another at the east termination of West Audrey Street. 2 8-inch gravity sewer mains are located at the edge of the subject property, one at the south termination of South Angel Avenue and another at the east termination of West Audrey Street. Effluent from the subject property would flow to the lift station number 2 before being pumped to the treatment facility. The water system named lift station and wastewater treatment facility currently have capacity to serve the intended use. A traffic impact study was required for the rezoning application. Development of the property will require adherence to the city's transportation plan, adopted transportation map, and improvements required by the traffic impact study for build-out. The traffic impact study specifically addressed a full residential build-out of the requested land use, multifamily, with a connection to the Angel Brook Estates subdivision through Angel Avenue and a connection to the Countryside Terrace subdivision through Lipscomb Drive. The traffic impact study also takes into consideration a new public street connection to be made at Kansas Avenue. No traffic improvements were found to be necessary for the build-out. The subject parcel does not contain any areas of special floodplain hazard area. The subject property does not contain any identified sinkholes. Staff considers the proposed zoning amendment rezoning to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, not consistent with surrounding land uses, and able to be adequately served by municipal facilities. Based on this analysis, performed without the benefit of evidence and testimony of a public hearing, staff is recommending the approval of this application.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Is the applicant here, and if so, does the applicant want to speak? Come forward, give us your name.
My name is Todd Wright, and I'm the owner of the 688 parcel there. I am a new developer, so excuse me if I jumble my words and screw everything up here. But we bought this piece of land a little over 2 years ago and been working with the city to try to figure out exactly how we can do something to best develop this skinny parcel there. And then Mr. Cleo came and said, hey, why don't you buy my house too? And unfortunately, he's burned in the process of closing. So we put together the best plan we can come up with, working with the city. And I understand that there's been some miscommunications on what we are building to the community, so I did bring a printout of my exact plans. And this I had made over a year ago when we started trying to get this done. So if I could leave that for everybody to grab one. You guys have any questions for me?
Let's provide the material for the commission to do it. Let them decide what they like. Sure.
I'll let Mr. Barry take over from here.
My name is Sean Berry. I'm civil engineer with Toth and Associates, representing the developer. I just want to add a few pieces of information for your all's consideration tonight. These parcels are kind of odd in shape. Obviously, irregular shaped parcels are really hard to develop, as you might understand. So it makes this property, I wouldn't say undevelopable, but very difficult to develop. And so when we started mapping out this property, we went through iteration after iteration of potential opportunities to make this piece of ground work. We've worked with the city, as Todd had said, over the last over a year, almost 2 years, just trying to come up with a plan that we thought was commensurate with the area and that worked on this particular parcel. And this is the plan that he's handed out that he intends to build. And it's a mixed-use development with part of it being duplex housing and part of it being townhomes. The picture that Mr. Wright had was the townhome development and what the aesthetic of that is intended to look like. I will add that I'm sure, I appreciate everybody showing up tonight. I know we're going to hear some good comments from the residents in the area. I think probably the comment that I'm expecting to hear the most is that this is single family. We want to keep it single family, and I want you all to know that to develop single family really isn't possible here. That north-south parcel, we can't get 2 lots on either side of the road. When you can't get 2 lots on either side of the road, the infrastructure costs are too high. You can't sell the lots in the house for as much as it takes to recoup the costs. So it's already, so that east-west road, the cost of that really it's not supportive of itself. And so, sorry, the north-south piece, I've got my direction turned around here. The north-south piece, the townhome piece, because of the density on that, we're able to overcome the cost of some of the infrastructure on the east-west portion. And so to do residential single family here is really not possible, especially not in this economy. I doubt it will be in the future either. If something like this is not approved, then it's likely that this parcel will sit vacant, because it's just going to be really hard are to develop. It might develop into 1 or 2 lots, but it's certainly not going to develop into a more dense area. And as you all know, you're struggling with housing in the area. Republic's growing faster than any community in this Southwest Missouri, and different levels, different types of housing is extremely important. It matches what the city's goals are, providing different varieties of homes and types of housing in this area is extremely important. And so we would be available to answer any questions that you all might have of us, and certainly of any questions that the community has of us. But I wanted to give you that level of information. Do you have any questions for our team at this time?
All right, now, I think we'll wait. We may when we get into our discussion.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Can I ask one thing? Is the picture down there the same that we're looking at?
Yeah, the picture just kind of provides a
I think it's a-
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, I did. Okay.
Would you
Okay.
hand the commission the picture and they can,
Yeah.
we just want everybody to know we're not, I mean, this is gonna be a nice development for this area. It's, not intended. I will say one more thing. The zoning approval will give us a density that is much greater than what our intended development is. And so I think by land use, we can get up to 180 units on this 10 acres. The intent is not that. Right now, the plan includes 88 units, which is more than what single family would provide, but not significantly more. It's just not feasibly possible to get single family homes there. So that's something else to take into consideration.
And one question on that, is this the minimum zoning that would allow for what you're asking for, or is there a lower level?
You're currently, the only way to do townhomes in Republic is through R3
Okay.
zoning.
We're good.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Not seeing anyone raise their hand or come forward. Anyone that wishes to speak as opposed to the application? Yes, ma'am? Yes, please. And there's a sign-in sheet up there that I bet you didn't sign.
I bet I didn't. My name is Susan Fanasic, and I own 707 South Countryside, which, if you have your map, and I'm sorry, the handouts you got, was that a different picture than what we got? Yeah. Okay. So, on the thing that you had up here, I back up to the more narrow part that they were discussing. And if I understand right, is that where you're planning to put the 2-story townhomes? So my question, I guess, my concern, my biggest concern is I understand that Branson's growing, but every apartment that I see in Republic or multifamily is in a much less developed area where there's clearly better planning involved. And what I would hate to see is that someone bought this piece of land and is just saying, how can I maximize my profit in developing this? And so in that narrow strip, I'm questioning, well, so now I am literally going to have someone on my fence line possibly looking into my backyard, because it just doesn't look to me like you would have enough room for a road and the infrastructure with curbs and whatnot that goes into that, possibly a sidewalk, and these 2-story townhomes. And I think that's my biggest concern, and I don't know that it really matters in that narrow strip, right, left, which side you're going to put the road. You're talking about a townhome with basically no backyard. So then that's privacy fenced, and you're going to be literally on top of homes, whereas obviously I was aware that that was an unfinished piece of property, but in my mind I'm thinking, well, houses have to be on whatever the minimum acreage is, and you have to be so far off of the property line and so far set back from the street. So I didn't expect to have, even if it was a 2-story house, I didn't expect to have it possibly quite literally on my fence line. And that's a huge concern as a property owner, and what that does not only to just privacy day to day, but also noise and resale value for my home. And that would be my concern. I'm not criticizing the design. It looks lovely, and I'm sure it will be a nice development, but it just seems to me that that's a very odd piece of land, and you're trying to squeeze something in that I'm not so sure there's room for that. And that would be my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh.
While we are between speakers, I will remind you that applause has been explicitly stated that will not be allowed. And if you guys interrupt, you will be asked to leave.
I'm looking for the next speaker who would be opposed to the application. Is there any person that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Richard Neal. I live at 814 West Charlotte, which is just north of this development, on the other side of O'Neill Road. Kind of the biggest concern I have with this is when they were reading the city's own description of it, it is not consistent with the surrounding property. And the research I could do, generally, any of these new rezonings, new developments that you guys are passing have been consistent with surrounding properties. And so I understand this is a difficult piece of land, but just because it's hard to develop, I don't feel that that should go outside of what the city would normally do, where we have stayed consistent with these new developments and kind of structured with the way things have been. Again, as we know and have seen, it's existing neighborhoods, it's existing buildings that are already there that are single family. Just doing quick math on that, I believe it was 3 structures per acre, which would get to around 33 homes, or 30 homes, excuse me, on the 10 acres. What we're proposing to rezone it to gets us to 172 structures on that same 10 acres. I know that that's not what they are planning to develop, but once it has been rezoned into that, if their plans were to fall through, it has now been opened into that type of structure, which kind of leads me to my point of, why does Republic only have one type of zone for multifamily? To me, it would make sense for you guys to develop a tiered zone like we have for single family that could say this is for townhomes and duplexes, this is for apartment complexes, set up some sort of differentiation there. That way, what's happening with this, where everyone hears multifamily, and our worst fear is a 4-story apartment complex pops up, because does the city have restrictions on that? What does that say can happen? And I understand that there's platting that happens and people look at that, but again, it's potential of what could be. And so really that's kind of my big question on that is, we're not consistent with what has currently been there, what the land around it is used for, and then this is a prime opportunity for a different type of zoning to be developed, to say this is multifamily, but it is limited to this number of structures. Even by their own planning, as I said, if we kept it single family, it would be 30 structures. They're planning on 88. That is, 55 more units? And if we do an average of 2 people per unit, that's over 100 more cars that are emptying through the Angel subdivision in the countryside. They're saying that there's no need for additional infrastructure. It's not going to impact roads, but that's, again, 100 more cars than if this was developed in what the surrounding area is, if it stayed consistent with what is there now. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to point out to everyone here that we're here to hear a zoning matter and not a plat. We're not making a decision on the plat. So it changes the zoning, but we don't have the power to say, well, you're going to do this or anything else. And that's a separate procedure that follows the change in the zoning. You alluded to it. I thought I would make sure everybody understood that. Is there anyone else that's opposed to the application that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Stephen Cody Greenhall, and I live at 709 South Countryside, which is neighbor. So my back property butts up against to the property in question. I've been in the trades since 2006. I teach shop out in Willard. I teach trades at OTC. So building is something that is a passion of mine. I'm also a partial owner at Republic Barbell Club. I'm here in Republic. Me and my wife, we moved into that house close to 10 years ago. We got a little son, Finley. And everything I do in my life, I run through what is my cost and benefit analysis. What's the cost versus what's my benefit? And I'm having a very difficult time seeing a benefit to having that many more residencies in my backyard versus what my quality of life now is, where we can sit on the back porch. You know, we have a nice home, we have a nice family, and we have nice neighbors. I know every community has pockets of communities. I know the whole countryside community, there's quite a few of us. Like, it is still a very neighborly community where, you know, we will go out to each other's driveways, we'll go each other's, you know, back porches. And I don't feel like this proposal of what's being proposed here is going to add to the benefit of that community versus what it's going to cost, what we have going on right now. I don't see a whole lot of benefit. I know O'Neill, there's typically a train parked out in front of O'Neill. When that happens, all the traffic gets diverted either to Kansas, or you have to drive out towards Billings and loop around on the little country roads going that way. It is, you know, infrastructurally, like, it's going to push a lot of that traffic onto that Kansas road, which is already kind of a hard road to drive on. If you haven't been out there, just drive on it a couple times. But I feel, you know, the cost even there is going to outweigh the benefits of just having more available homes in the Republic community when there's already homes going up all over the place. And it may not be the variety that's being looked for, but I'm having a hard time seeing, like, how's it going to benefit my family, how's it going to benefit my neighbors, and how's it going to benefit, you know, the countryside community where we all are like one piece together. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else that's opposed to the application that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Klusmeyer. I'm with Lowther Johnson Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of Brad and Denise Anderson. They own the property that is adjoining to the south and the west of the proposed rezone. And I just wanted to hit on some of the points in the staff plan really quickly. First of all, consistency with the comprehensive plan. I respectfully disagree that this is consistent with the plan. If you look at the housing market study attached to the plan, you'll see that Republic already has a healthy inventory of multifamily dwellings. By 2020, it's projected you will actually have a surplus of 90 units. I meant 2040 if I said 2020. And it's projected there will be a deficit of 3,763 single-family units in 2040. So given that Republic has little need for this type of development, I think this commission should be particularly selective about where it places it. The other issue is compatibility with surrounding land uses. As I think everyone acknowledges, this is not compatible with medium-density residential and ag development. They're looking to sandwich it between two R1M zones and an R1M and an ag zone. It'd be almost a classic example of spot zoning here. I mean, as you know, most large multifamily development is up by 60 and 174, and then small multifamily development between Main and West and, I forgot the other streets, I think 60 and Wade. But out here, the trend, as is stated in the staff report, is single-family residential. And then there's the increase in density. This is obviously going to allow 3.5 times the allowable density of R1M and 52 times the allowable density of ag. This would result in, I believe, diminished property values. We were supposed to have a realtor here to testify to that, but he wasn't able to make it. Traffic issues, which I'll talk about in a second. And then the increase in impermeable surfaces that are going to be needed for units, streets, and parking would cause an already intolerable drainage situation on my client's property to get even worse. As far as the traffic issues go, there was a traffic impact study that was conducted. And I just want to ask real quick, are you all planning to access Angel Avenue? The layout that we have passed out is not reflected. Okay. But the developers are planning to connect to Lipscomb Drive, and this will result in a dramatic increase in traffic through the Countryside Terrace subdivision. They project daily traffic volumes increasing over 336%, AM traffic volumes increasing 600%, and PM traffic volumes increasing 335%. Lipscomb runs through a single-family residential subdivision, and as with most of these subdivisions, there's cars, boats, everything else parked on the road. There's choke points of literally one lane. So we're talking about flooding this with multifamily development traffic and creating not only congestion issues, but possible safety issues for neighborhood children. And the traffic impact study, one thing it fails to show is the impact this is going to have, and it's already been mentioned, at the intersection of O'Neill and US 60. Most of this traffic is going to flow onto O'Neill, which is an extremely narrow road if you've been out there. It's much more narrow than Kansas Avenue. And then vehicles are going to go across a railroad track to US 60. And when there's trains stopped on that track, which there often are, it backs up traffic on 60, which is one of the main concerns that was the basis of the new comprehensive plan as far as transportation goes, was alleviating those congestion issues on 60. This will only compound them. Also, it forces traffic up into Concordia Avenue to the north, so then you're flooding another subdivision with traffic as people try to get around the train so they can get to and from their home. And obviously, it would also create access issues for emergency services, which already exist, but again, the problem would be compounded. And finally, I would just say that just from going out there on Friday myself and taking a look at this area, O'Neill Road is extremely narrow. All of the traffic is going to funnel onto it. It's not equipped to handle it. The intersection of O'Neill and Kansas, which is another ingress-egress point that they've identified, is also extremely troublesome. If two vehicles meet at that intersection, which I did, if the vehicle on O'Neill is not back significantly from the stop sign, then a vehicle turning onto O'Neill basically has to leave the road to get onto O'Neill. This area is simply not built for the kind of traffic that this is going to generate. And real quick, I just wanted to hand out pictures. I didn't unfortunately make copies because we didn't have a lot of time to get ready for this, but these are pictures of my client's property flooding during rain as it already exists. And as I said, if they don't do adequate detention, that's going to be even worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak opposed to the petition?
My name is David McFarland. I live at 653 South Adam Avenue. My wife and I moved here from Phoenix, Arizona. Actually, we lived in Phoenix, and we bought a house in Buckeye because we were tired of the kind of rat race that area. There's a lot of people there. And the way the world is today, we decided to buy a house here. So we kept that house and this house, and we did that for about 4 years. We finally decided to sell our house in Buckeye and move here. And, you know, I'm not against building in making a community grow or housing or anything like that. But just because you can build, does that mean you should build? You know, think about that. There's a little strip there, just because it's narrow and you can only put townhouses or duplexes, does that mean you gotta do it? Why can't we make that like, there's a lot of dog owners here. Why can't we make it a dog park? You know? I'd like to see something like that. I mean, put a paved path through it. The roads in Buckeye, last time when it snowed, I couldn't even get snow removed from my road. You know? Because they don't remove it. If you put more roads in, they're not even gonna be able to do that. How are they gonna do that? And the roads are falling apart as we speak. There's potholes in every road on Kansas, O'Neill. Have you guys been up that way, driven up that way lately? And we're going to put more stress on the police department, the fire department. There's going to be more crimes. You know, I put I bought this house and I remodeled it. I put like $65,000 in this house, okay, to make it a nicer house, you know. And I don't want a gigantic building behind my house, okay? And I don't want a duplex behind my house. If you want to put residential in there, I guess there's nothing I can do about that. But I'm willing to donate $10,000, $20,000, whatever
Speak to
it
us.
takes to buy the land.
Speak to us. Don't speak
Okay.
to them.
Well, you know, you didn't say to speak.
It's a public hearing. You're talking
Well,
to
yeah,
us.
but everybody's public, aren't we? I mean,
Sir,
right?
sir, speak to us, please.
I am speaking to you,
Thank
but
you.
I think they need to hear me
They
too.
can hear you, but you're speaking to us. We're taking your testimony.
Okay,
If
but-
you don't
but
want us to hear your testimony,
That's fine. But what I'm trying to say is, just because you can build doesn't mean you need to build. Okay? I mean, there's all kinds of land out there. Go fetch it somewhere else. You know? We don't need this kind of property in a quiet residential neighborhood. It's extremely quiet there. You put all these cars, and there's no way the infrastructure is going to hold up. I got 5 other things here. Okay. The other one, sorry about that. It will open up doors for future expansion and changing of rezonings. And like the lawyer says here, it is spot zoning. It's a perfect classic example of spot zoning. And I'm totally against it. Plus, I have 77 signatures here. This is the first page. There's the second page of everybody that lives in that area that is against this. And they all said, I got a phone number right here on every person that I talked to. And they said that if I need to, I can call them and they will be here. So there's not enough seating for everybody to come. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak as opposed to the application? Yes, ma'am?
This is my forever home.
Take a deep breath.
We bought this house 2 years ago, knowing, at least we were told, that this land would not be developed. And this was during the time where, you know, houses were really, really hard to find. And we found this little piece of heaven. We have great neighbors. I'm meeting a lot of them tonight as well. My house is right here. And I understand, same with that gentleman back there, that, you know, I'm not opposed to development, but trying to squeeze these townhomes, I don't care what they look like. I was in multifamily for 30 years. I know what that brings to the neighborhood. But I don't want to lose my view. And I'd be willing to pay for a piece of that land behind me, if he would be so willing to do so I don't have to lose it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, ma'am, could we get your name? I'm sorry. 2 people told me to do that, and then you got away from me. Could you tell us your name?
Kelly.
Ms. Kelly? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak as opposed to this? Yes, sir, in the back.
Hi there. My name is William Hillhouse. I live on 613 South Countryside, so one of the properties that butts directly up to this development. About the zoning, the biggest concern I have, and we've heard it from a lot of people here, is about it being multifamily and bringing in a lot of additional people to that area. The traffic would be my biggest concern. It's a quiet neighborhood. If you go there on a typical day, you see kids playing out on the sidewalks in the local park. We've already seen a lot more traffic start coming through. I've just noticed, even at my house, seeing cars go back and forth countryside more often since we've started having more construction the big field that had the silo just up from us. They turned that into a big 2-story development. Just noticed a lot more traffic just from that. When we add this on top of it, there's going to be even more traffic. I want these kids to continue to be able to play out there. They're riding their bikes up and down the roads. They're having a good time. I don't want there to be any risk or any worry that increased traffic is going to limit that. We have a really good road there on Countryside. A lot of people know each other. We talk at each other's driveways. We have neighbor kids that walk down to a single point to get on the bus every morning, down on the road. And especially this time of year, it's dark in the morning, people are leaving for work. I would hate for that increased amount of traffic to cause even more danger or anything to those kids. Plus, we all kind of have a sense of privacy in a smaller subdivision like this, really community, like it feels like just a small community. And I grew up in a small town north of Springfield, Phillipsburg, up towards Lebanon. And so I'm used to like farmland and everything like that. Whenever I first moved, I moved to Springfield, got an apartment, and did not like the city life up there. It was just too busy. When I started asking people where to buy a house, everyone told me Republic, because it felt like a small town, or it was a small town, but it felt like a big town with all the conveniences. I moved to a house off of Kentwood, and it was exactly what people told me. I loved it so much that whenever I grew out of that house, I stayed in Republic, bought this house on Countryside, and still got all those benefits of feeling like I was in a small town, knowing all my neighbors, trusting everything with all the conveniences of a big town. And to go into zoning like this, bringing in more multifamily, I'm afraid that we could potentially get away from that vision that I've seen, and people moving here in the future can't get that same experience that I did whenever I moved here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak as opposed? How are you tonight?
I'm nervous. I'm not afraid of spiders or snakes or heights, but I'm afraid of public speaking.
Just the Planning and Zoning Commission, that's all that scares you?
I'm Betty North. My husband and I live at 733 West O'Neill. We've been there 50 years in that house and 10 years in the house next door. So I am familiar with the neighborhood. First of all, regarding the rezone, let me ask you to look at Exhibit A at the end of the last page, where it says staff recommendations. Please concentrate on the sentence that states the P&Z recommends approval of the application without the benefit of the evidence and testimony of the public hearing. You will note that that part of the paragraph is not in bold print, as most of the other paragraph is. I feel that particular sentence should be in bold print and even underscored. Public testimony is so important that it should be considered top priority in a recommendation. Just how important is public opinion in rezoning? Missouri lawmakers felt it was so important that they passed a law, RSMO 89060, that gives extra weight to the opinions of nearby property owners. And that means it requires a 2/3 majority of the final vote in order for the rezone to pass, based on signatures that have been notarized. That law is clear evidence of how important the neighbor's input is in rezoning, and should be given very high consideration before you vote tonight. Most of the concern I heard from neighbors was that multifamily is not appropriate in this location. Indeed, even your planning and zoning exhibit states on page 2 under compatibility heading, a rezone of subject parcel from AG and medium density to multifamily is not considered to be consistent with single-family residential. So, planning and zoning agrees with the neighbors on this point. If you have a finding of fact sheet marked no with regard to the consistency and compatibility. Also, in considering finding of facts as to whether or not to approve the rezone request, consider whether or not the rezone aligns with the purposes of Missouri law RSMO 89040. You should check no on that question because the rezone is not aligned with the purposes as outlined in that law. The first consideration is street congestion. This rezone will not lessen street congestion. It will indeed increase it. Number 2 in the law regards to overcrowding. This rezoning will, in fact, result in land overcrowding. Number 3, it speaks about the character of the neighborhood. This rezone would change the character of the neighborhood. Number 4 of the Missouri law 89040. Again, this rezoning misses the mark. This rezoning to multifamily would not show consideration to the value of the property and adjoining the development. Item number 5 of RSMO mentions the most appropriate use of the land. Multifamily is not the most appropriate use of this land. So all 5 counts of Missouri rezoning law of 89040 fails to meet the outlined criteria and should not be approved. There is already precedent in Republic for denying rezoning requests for multifamily zoning into existing single-family neighborhoods. I feel that if you approve this, it will be an arbitrary and capricious decision, and in my opinion, is what I consider to be spot zoning and totally wrong. If you still can't make up your mind about how to vote, then do as a P&Z member once did and state out loud, I wouldn't want this in my backyard, and then vote no. As a PS, I have 8 seconds left. All of the stormwater drainage.
I'll give you another minute.
Oh, thank you. All of the stormwater drainage that comes off of this property will flow along the backside of our property. And there's already a significant amount that flows there because it comes off of the 2 subdivisions, the one right next to us and then the one across the street, Angel Brook. So there's significant water flowing. That water eventually flows down across Kansas, and then it flows across 174 into the brand new subdivision that you will approve for a PDD development. So rainwater or stormwater should be a factor also.
Thank you, Ms. North. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak as opposed, excuse me, as opposed to the application? Nobody rushing up.
Can a person that talks say one more thing?
Can a person say one more
Can I
thing?
say something else that I wanted to say that I forgot because I'm so mad I can't see straight? Yeah, I mean,
That's a definite good argument for me letting you come up here. Wait. Listen. Come up here. I'll give you a minute.
I don't even need a minute.
Okay, well, come up here and speak from the lectern, please.
I talked to everyone I talked to that I got the signatures for the petition. They all said about how they see deer out there, turkey out there, game life. And it, you know, it is kind of a neat area right there. It's a strip of land that we need to think about. I mean, just because you can build doesn't mean you have to build on something. We need to keep that just like it is, or do residential. You might not be able to get as much on there, but you know, that's my opinion.
Thank you.
And I am willing, if anybody wants to chip in, I'll buy that land. Okay? If you want to sell it.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Going, gone. Close this hearing. We'll now discuss.
Some of the concerns that were brought up regard the buffer between the current proposed rezoning and adjoining properties. Could you give any light to what a required buffer would be between a building and an adjoining property?
So I can't tell you obviously what the exact buffer would be for any property that were to develop on that. But what the city requires between R1M and R3 zoning is a type A screening, which is the most rigorous of the screening requirements. So it provides or requires an opaque, that the screen is opaque from the ground to a height of 6 feet with intermittent visual obstructions to a height of at least 12 feet. So you're talking about something like a fence up to 6 feet and then trees, you know, above that. In addition, I would also say that that R1 or that R3 property has a 15-foot setback on any property line, so there wouldn't be no one would be directly up against a fence. So no buildings would be built in anyone's backyard.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question of the Built Right Homes? After hearing what you've heard today, would you still like to move forward? Yes. Okay.
Another issue that was brought up was detention requirements and water offlow onto adjacent properties. I know this is not a plating issue, but during development, could you give light to the people here on what the requirements for outflow of stormwater would be on a development?
I'll let Angel, our city engineer, speak to that.
Hi, I'm Angel, the engineering manager for City of Republic. So for a property to be developed, we look at pre-existing flows, and stormwater report is done, and the site is analyzed to determine post-existing or post-development flows, and we try and ensure that the post-development flows don't go beyond what was pre-existing, and that's all involved in the stormwater report design.
So basically, if I understand what you say, you take a measure of what's running across the property now, and once the property's developed, it can't exceed that amount.
Yes, that is correct.
You probably said that, and I didn't hear it. Any other comments, questions?
I have a few more. The question around the easements, can you speak to what the easement is? I think it was Susan who had made the comment about the two-story immediately following her backyard right along the fence line. Can you talk about how far back something would have to be built? I know that we have a drawing here illustrating potentially what a townhome would look like on the property with a road running north-south, but it's hard to distinguish from this image, or just in general, there's what looks like an easement line that's drawn. Is that 10 feet?
Again, the city doesn't have an application for a development. It's just for a rezone. So the closest any building could be, though, it would be required to meet the 15-foot setback for the backyard or front yard or side yard, depending on how, whatever it was configured.
15 feet.
So 15 feet, whether there were any easements in there, I couldn't say. It would end up with however that was designed. But so you would have the space between the individual's house and their end of their backyard, and then the 15 feet on the other property.
Okay. think that's all I have.
Any other comments, questions? Get down to it. Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve 22008.
I have a motion to approve recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 10.44 acres located at 688 South Kansas Avenue from agricultural and medium-density single-family residential to multifamily R3. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion to vote.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner DeBravo,
No.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Alexander,
No.
Commissioner Pinnell,
Nay.
Commissioner Ellis.
Nay. For the benefit of the applicant, I want to say, I recognize your problem, but I've been on this commission for more years than I can remember. And I don't remember any time that we have gone more than one step above R1. So we might go to R2, but not to R3. And especially in a circumstance where you kind of got a challenge to do what you're doing. And I understand, I don't understand totally the dollars and cents of it, but I understand you're in the business to try and make money, and you need to try and do that the best you can with the property that you got. But I can't vote for R3 on that property. That's me personally.
Yeah, and I would add, so generally, like, we approve almost everything that comes before us. But I'd say also to the neighbors, like, that's not going to sit empty forever. So, like, maybe you do want to band together and buy the thing, but I would echo what Ransom said. Like, that's a big jump based on where that sits, traffic and everything else. So, and I've not been on this very long, but we've not seen anything come through where it doesn't conform to the surrounding use. So that kind of stands out to me.
Go ahead.
Given your current codes, we started out with R2. That would have been preferable. But the codes won't allow townhomes. And so, again, I'll state that the density is allowed in the rezoning of 180 units, but the intent is not to put 180 units there. So is there some option for this developer to pursue some path moving forward with a lesser density so that these people can be assured that there's not going to be 250?
We're bound by the code right now. If the code changes, then the code changes. But we don't change the code. The code's changed by council. Also, for everybody here, we're just the first stop. This is we're not recommending the approval of this, but it goes to council, and council doesn't have to listen to our recommendation at all. So there will be another hearing on this, provided that the applicant continues with the application.
Do you all ever do conditional overlay districts that limit the potential?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge too. Like, I think I'd be more favorable to something less dense than this. But part of the challenge is if we rezone it, it's rezoned forever, and because we don't have those kind of conditional limits.
We have to follow the ordinances that are on the books now. And it may be that there's something that would work better for everybody that's just not available because of R2 not being available, as an example. All I was telling you was the history of the commission, and man, I just do not remember a time that we've ever put R3 up against an R1. And it may have happened years ago, because I've been on here for more than 20 years. But since we've definitely revamped the code, and we're trying to stay real religious with the code. I think somebody said that earlier, and that's true. We try and do that. And, you know, the problem is, as Ms. Norris said, I wouldn't want that in my backyard. And it's a matter of R3 to R1. That's the problem for me.
Understood. Appreciate you guys' feedback.
Thank
One-
you.
Yeah,
What-
thanks for coming. We want to encourage development, but yeah. this is a
Just
tough
one more comment for the neighbors. This is the first stop. So this is a recommendation to approve or not approve. The recommendation goes to the city council to approve or not approve. So if you're adamant that you're opposed, you need to take that to the Republic City Council. We have a city councilman that's sitting here listening tonight who I think will be able to represent those views, but it doesn't stop here.
The notice was sent out with the original certified mail that went to the property owners and tenants. It's tomorrow night, same place, same time.
Okay.
Could I recommend something to the builder?
We're done. We're done with that. Other business? Don't think there's any other business. Now, citizen participation. If anybody here wants to come up and tell us something that we haven't heard about this property, we don't want to hear about this property, but if it's something else, we'll listen.
So can I talk to you?
I guess so, yeah. No, we're still in a meeting. You come right here. I'm sorry.
Well, you know,
I hate to be.
okay, that's all right. I'm new
We
here,
got our
so I don't
procedure.
know. You know, I've never been to anything like this in my life.
Okay.
You know, but I've got friends in Park Hills and Farmington, Missouri that are builders or build condominiums, but they put them outside, not near houses, you know, on a land by themselves. But what about the builders, if you could build like 55 plus communities? You know, see, I'd go for something like that. I might even buy one. You know, I mean, there's hardly any fit. In Arizona, they're everywhere, aren't they, Leanne?
Sir.
And they're really nice neighborhoods.
Please stay addressing us and not the crowd.
Well, you know, we just address whoever, God, everybody.
You can do that outside.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
You know, I just, did you get everything? I haven't had much sleep the last couple of days. I slept 3 hours. So I'm a little antsy.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Very, very good discussion, and we appreciate you coming and giving us your opinion. Take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Dear second?
Do we have the ever popular builds update first?
No,
No?
not on
There's
the
no
agenda.
builds update tonight.
Not on
just
the
checking.
agenda.
How dare you?
I'll make the second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Alexander,
Aye.
Commissioner Pinnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava.
Aye.